meeting child soldiers in Uganda, or giving testimony about the genocide in Rwanda. Along with each of these recollections, she matches a poem, some ancient, some modern, and some translations from other parts of the world. I could have selected a great many of these memories and their matching poems. The one I initially wanted to do was about a sister of a bloke who was killed in a bus, and how instead of being bitter, she decided to go for love, and she set up various associations in order to help both the victims and the perpetrators. I could have read one that was about inspiration for terrorist idealism, right? Which if anybody's watched Say Nothing on television, they'll know what I'm talking about. Right, anyway, the one that I did choose was because of the fires this week in Los Angeles, which were largely brought about by climate change, and I've selected a reading which describes the consequences of climate change on Niger in 2021. The consequences of LA, of course, were very different, right? I'm not suggesting that this will happen in Los Angeles. This memory of Lindsay's shows how climate change displaced people from their homes and livelihood, how the young people got drawn to join the jihadis and terrorism, and that foments war. It also throws light on why these people, displaced by climate change, are willing to pay a high price to get what they see, to get what they see as the promised land. And that, of course, as we know, might be a small boat crossing to the White Cliffs of Dover. Okay, so I'll now do the reading. It's called Ulam, Niger, November 2021. Across the Sahel, it's not war that creates the landscape, but the other way round. The impact of climate change on the land is fomenting war. People who have always lived alongside each other have become enemies. As the desert expands, herders are grazing their animals on what has traditionally been arable land, and farmers are having to cultivate ever more marginal soils. Enter the jihadis, recruiting pastoralists who have been forced to abandon their way of life and turning old land disputes into modern conflict. They control large parts of Mali and Burkina Faso and threaten Niger. Weak civilian governments have struggled to cope, and all three countries have experienced coups. Lindsay Lindstrom met Safi Al-Firi under a flimsy straw and wood shelter in a camp for displaced people in Ulm, a dusty town 100 kilometers north of the capital of Niger. She described how a violent band of men with faces swathed in cloth stormed her village on motorbikes. She says, they took one person out into the bush and killed him. She said, acting out the motions to emphasize the terror of the moment, wrapping imaginary fabric round her head and miming a rifle. The next day, they came back and killed another. We asked them, what do you want? They said, we must leave our village. Other women dressed like Al-Firi in long, brightly colored cotton wraps, most with infants jutting from their hips, crowded round to listen. A baby screeched. An old woman sitting on the sandy ground, her withered legs outstretched in front, pointed to her eyes with bony fingers to indicate that she was blind. Beyond the shelter, a relentless sun beat down. It was 45 degrees in the shade of the sparse thorn trees. A few goats browsed amongst tattered blue plastic bags caught in twigs. I nearly passed out from the heat. It was hard to see how people would survive when it got even hotter. In the past, such conflicts might be settled by the elders, but now jihadis are persuading pastoralists to fight under the flag of the local branch of Islamic State. It's not difficult to see how it happens. Young men whose families' herds have diminished and who can find no alternative employment have grown disillusioned and angry. Jihadism only has currency because their generation is looking for identity and meaning. As one community leader put it, they'd become communists if that was the ideology involved. Also, the jihadis pay and feed them, a significant temptation in countries where government services have broken down and many go to bed hungry. Once they've joined IS, it's hard to pull the young men back into society. Not only have they killed people, but they've also burnt their neighbours' crops and houses in a campaign of destruction to match a nihilistic ideology. The conflict in the Sahel presages wider wars. As the climate changes, water and arable land will become scarcer in many countries. The struggle for access to resources will intensify, and greater numbers will try to get to Europe and the US. In his sonnet, Epic, Patrick Kavanagh compares a spat between neighbours over land in rural Ireland in the 1940s to the roots of the Trojan War. The word's only short. Epic, Patrick Kavanagh, 1960. I have lived in important places, times when great events were decided. Who owned that half a rood of rock and no man's land surrounded by our pitchfork-armed claims? I heard the Duffys shouting, "Damn your soul!" and old McCabe, stripped to the waist, seen step to plot to find Blue Castile. Here is the march along those ironstones. That was the year of the Munich bombing. Which was more important? I inclined to lose my faith in Ballyrush and Gortin, till Homer's ghost came whispering to my mind. He said, I made the Iliad from such a local row. God makes their own importance. Thank you.